Almost every week for now 8 years, I've asked a final question that I refer to as a bold prediction. I ask leaders in diverse fields from solar and panel, battery manufacturing, finance, carbon capture, land acquisition, and energy trading to answer the question of what the future of our industry will look like. In 2023, I modified that bold prediction question to instead reflect as if from the future, to opine on what we got right if we did, looking in the rear view, hit our climate and decarbonization goals as we expect. I found that this backward-looking answer often elicits a more complete and reflection-oriented response. But it occurred to us that it's quite possible many of you just simply don't make it all the way to the end of these often hour-long interviews. So you may have missed these nuggets of wisdom. And since they truly do represent some of the greatest moments of 2023's interviews here on the pod, we decided to reshare these with you as some of our favorite bold prediction moments. Okay, first up, we've got Laura Pagliarulo with SolarREIT, a platform helping developers get liquidity from their land lease holdings.
What we will need to have gotten right is incorporating battery storage to allow more renewables to come online. So predicting where we need to sort of balance out those peaks, putting the right incentives in place for battery storage. I think that's going to be a key piece here. And there's a lot of issues right now that the industry needs to be tackling. So that's my. It's not very long from now. That's 7 years. We got 7 years. So
it is. I mean, I think that the real sort of cultural goal line is 2050, but I say to everyone 2030. Like if we don't turn the ship, there's a metaphorical iceberg waiting for us. All right, next in the lineup is Ardis Johnson, U.S. President of solar panel manufacturer Meyer Burger. Well, let's wrap Ardis with a final question here to leave folks tantalized. We often call it a bold prediction, but if you look out to the critical path of getting the decarbonization goals we have through 2030, 2050 resolved, what if we look back from there and we succeeded, what did we get right? What did we unlock?
We decided that every country has to participate, not only from the way that you live, but more myopically, and where I'm focused on solar production and manufacturing. We're making our first steps in something that's very new of how we approach the solar industry, at least in the U.S., with the Inflation Reduction Act and the opportunity here. Billions will be invested from the government, but billions and billions and multipliers of billions will be invested by the community, the businesses out there to help support that, make it happen. If we get it right, we kind of put down the debate, put down the political aisle, move away from that, and just recognize that this is best for us for whatever reason. And I can go to DC and I can talk on both sides of the aisle for a reason why we need this, and they both shake their head yes. And it's an opportunity for us to do this now. But more importantly, and I've said a lot there, for one quick answer, stability. We have to have stability. Manufacturers, billion-dollar investments in this country won't happen without no stability. So it takes all of us to think what that needs to do and what needs to happen for that to occur. And we can't do it alone in the U.S. We need colleagues from globally everywhere to be able to get there, but we need stability.
Thanks, Ardis, for that inspiration. Next, we've got Christy Obiaya, CEO of Heliogen, a publicly traded concentrating solar company that was birthed from Idealab. Well, let's end today, as we usually do, with a bold prediction. When we look out to the next 15 to 20 years, our goal by 2050 is a decarbonized grid. It often helps to think about achieving those goals by standing at the finish line, looking backwards. If I'm standing with you, shaking hands because we've accomplished it, it's 2050. We're proud of the accomplishment that we've gotten to a net zero grid. What did we get right?
Ooh, there's so much you could say there. And I think a lot of, I think we hear a lot about policy that's needed and investment that's needed. And I'm going to go with actually education. We got the education right. because I think it's so easy for decision makers and stakeholders to gravitate toward what they're familiar with, the thing that's least new. And we already know that relying solely on the things that are already deployed is not going to be enough to get us to net zero. And so, really educating folks in a way that allows them to be aware of all of the tools in the toolbox and all the options in front of them and how to put things on an apples to apples comparison basis. I think that's really something that will be helpful in accelerating our ability to deploy fast. And I think, speed and scale is exactly the couple of words that I think we need there.
Following Christy, we've got Robert Piccone, CEO of another Idea Lab creation, the energy storage hardware and software company, Energy Vault. If we looked out to 2030 and we've unlocked this big, hairy, audacious goal of achieving a renewable grid penetration of 70, 80, 90%, what did we get right? What's in your crystal ball about the success that we achieved and what it took to get there?
What we must have gotten right to get to that by that time frame has to do with an alignment across geopolitical boundaries. So that means it's global. That means it's it crosses borders, and that means that some of the largest companies and organizations in the world are making the choices and the priorities to achieve a goal, which today people would look at by 2030 to get to that 70, 80% renewable penetration is something that might be impossible. And I think most people would say that would be very difficult to achieve.
Yeah.
What keeps me, encouraged and optimistic and having relationships with, for example, Bill Gross and Idea Lab or companies and even the people here that are doing amazing innovation and innovations in technologies that are removing carbon from the air itself, or we're creating substances that actually can absorb carbon dioxide and things, looking at alternate technologies to help us achieve the goal, that even outside of the renewable penetration, it's about how do we reduce the heating up of the planet overall. And we have renewables to do that, but there's a lot of other technologies and ways we're going to achieve that goal just so we can get the planet back to where we were. Another way to think about that is how do we get the level of CO2 emissions back to what they were, for example, in 1970?
Yeah.
And can you do that? And the answer is yes. If you see some of the advances in some of the newer technologies, it keeps me optimistic.
Okay, next up, we've got my friend Aaron Halimi, CEO of Community Solar and Clean Infrastructure Developer Renewable Properties, and also the final episode from 2023, just in case you missed it. If we're looking back from 2050, and you and I are nearing the end of our careers, and we're happy and proud of the work that we've done, we've unlocked these big, audacious, hairy goals. What did we get right?
I'm going to go back to the people, because I truly believe that we have the technological solutions today to deploy at scale and to beat this thing. And so if we have the people, both within the industry, but also external to the industry, right? So if we had the right pieces of legislation around solving problems with the grid, with the aging infrastructure, with the right pieces of legislation around accelerating the permitting of these facilities, that as we sit here today, we have the right technological solution set to beat this thing. And it goes back to just being able to deploy it at scale and deploy it quickly.
You said something earlier that I think is really key to that as well. And that is helping folks identify and understand the transferable skills they bring from all walks of life, and that this industry is more than just boots on roof, bolting steel to the ground. There are many, many, many different skill sets that we need. And not only do we need to replace the aging infrastructure with flexible resources and a distributed grid, not only do we have the technological solutions to win this race, but when we have won, it will be because we were able to marshal the people that help move the society forward. All right, following Aaron, we've got Catherine Hamilton, founder and chair of 38 North Solutions, a public affairs firm that specializes in clean energy and innovation, but you may recognize her as the former co-host of the Energy Gang podcast.
Okay, so I've thought a lot about this, and I am in the throes of, over the next few years, transitioning from doing a lot of blocking and tackling, which I've done for all my career, to doing more, high level senior advising, sitting on boards, which I'm starting to do much more of now. And as I do that, I'm going to start relocating to the Shenandoah, back to the Shenandoah, where I'm originally from. And I spend a lot of time out there. We love it out there so much. So that will be where most of our focus is. And I've spent a lot of time with the people out there because our place is always needing somebody to rebuild the road that's washed out during a storm, or it's on the top of a mountain. So there's a lot going on. And I've talked to a lot of the people out there who are those people, and a lot of people. So my brother lives in Appalachia. A lot of these people don't see themselves as part of the future. If you don't see yourself as part of the future, then you're not for it. But I've noticed talking to the folks out in these rural communities that they're very aware of electric vehicles. They know what they are. And when I say to them, hey, you're looking for that F-150 Lightning, that would be really cool. They're like, no, I want the Mustang. And I know when someone responds to me in that way, it's because we've reached a point where they're not going to vote for the same people necessarily vote for. They're not voting for climate change. They may be environmental stewards for very different reasons, for reasons that, when deer season comes around, they want they want the woods to go into. But you know what? They know there's a product there that's going to do a lot more for them, and that's going to be better. So I think the electric vehicle industry is it's taking off in a way, and in a surprising way, more than and faster than I ever thought it would.
Next up, we've got Stephen Zhu, president of Trina Solar US, the largest importer of record for solar modules to the United States here in 2023.
If we too much rely on the incentives, but are not efficient enough to keep on driving the costs down, then once the incentive is gone, the market will be sudden death, or at least interrupted. Same philosophy if we are too much rely on the domestic contents, then we miss the opportunities to diversify our supply chain to reach a lower cost and higher efficiency. So although the whole industry is incentive inspired or ignite, but it should not rely on that forever. It only helps you to kick off, but it doesn't help you to survive long, if you know what I mean. That, it's a good start. It's like 20 years or 30 years ago, the German came up with the feed-in tariff. But by utilizing that kickoff, we have to do a lot of things to reach a higher goal, to bring more advanced technology, to train the people to, a better way, more efficient, more productive, and make your supply chain more resourceful, more diversified, more secure, and to make sure your costs is keep on getting lower. And like I said, simply by reducing labor's costs or material costs, you cannot lower the cost that much. You have to increase your efficiency. You have to increase your productivities. You have to increase your technology, improve your technology in order to reach a lower cost. So and a lot of things, like I said, were wasted, in terms of the EPC, in terms of these, warehousing, in terms of the logistic, in terms of putting things together, so that's the things that I do think people should give the efforts to, because, you're not getting the money. It's just simply wasted. And, with the both side efforts, we definitely can be able to, get those rooms back, and, so everybody can enjoy it. And you have to be, dynamically manage the business. The policy is not something that we totally can predict. So it's the matter of when that happens, what can we do?
All right, following Stephen, we've got our friends from the other side of the world, Mr. Andy McCarthy, founder and former CEO of RACV Solar, one of the largest solar companies in Australia, formerly Gippsland Solar, and one of the most successful acquisitions, I might add. Let's end today with what we call a bold prediction, but I'm going to modify it slightly, given that you have already seen a market like Australia go through mega or hyper growth. What do you feel might be the important or most important aspect of a solar business that CEOs here in America could learn from those markets like Australia and Germany that are ahead of us? How would you advise someone listening to really focus on how they grow their business over the coming years now in America with the tailwind of the IRA as we try to drive costs down and adoption up? What might be your last piece of parting advice?
Well, I think that, certainly in Australia, we've paid the price for spending too much time creating demand for solar, and we haven't spent anywhere near enough time on the supply side. So something I'm very passionate now is creating more pathways, working with registered training organizations, getting skills and development, getting into boys and girls in the schooling system who might identify a passion for renewable energy. We need to start building those skills because in every state and territory in Australia, we have some very bold and ambitious targets for renewable energy. But what we don't have is the workforce to get us there. So we need to find more dirty boots and blue collar workforce to help to deliver these projects. We need to find these rising stars who are budding entrepreneurs that could go and do anything in their business career. We need to show them that renewable energy is the place that you need to focus your energy. We just need to find the next generation of people that are going to change the world and convince them that the way to do that is to get into the renewable energy sector. Because, I don't spend a lot of time looking in the rearview mirror at what we've achieved. I'm just so focused on what's ahead and what we still need to do. And I think with electrification, EVs, Internet of Things, the next billionaire out there in the world is probably sitting in their garage right now. He or she's trying to find smarter ways to move electrons around the world, and they might not even own any infrastructure like an Airbnb or an Uber. They might just be very tech savvy and create something that's never been done before, and they might be the next billion-dollar company. So, opportunity abounds everywhere. It's incredibly exciting time, and I've got a longer time left in my career, but I also see people coming through into the industry now, and I think, geez, you've got an amazing journey ahead of you. So just go and sink your teeth into it.
Okay. We're getting closer to the end of our roundup of 10. Next is Billy Lee, co-founder and president of Reunion, one of the solar finance sector's true OGs. At Reunion, they're building a marketplace for clean energy tax credits, in particular, transferable tax credits.
If we make this market liquid, if we enable all the different technologies that are the IRA and other energy policy goals go out to support, I think that will be a massive success, right?
Yeah.
And not some of the technologies and some of the initiatives will, be more successful than others. That's not our goal, is to pick winners or losers. It's really to enable whatever energy transition policies that we as a country have decided to focus on.
And last but certainly not least, an interview that we did here live in Durham at the offices of 8 Rivers, none other than Damian Beauchamp, the president and chief development officer for 8 Rivers, a local Durham, North Carolina company building disruptive energy technology and recently named to Reuters' 2023 Top 100 Global Energy Transition Innovators. Let's end today with what I call a bold prediction, and I hope that yours is going to be more all-encompassing than some of the other answers I get from specifically renewable energy-focused leaders. And that is, if we look to 2050, and we're standing there, Damian and I, we're old men, 2050, hopefully we're still alive, and okay, maybe not old, but we're elderly. And we're looking back from 2050. We're shaking hands here at a bar in Durham. We're congratulating ourselves for hitting our net zero targets on, reducing emissions and saving the planet for our children. What did we get right?
Yeah, so I mean, for myself, I hope to have been a part of an organization in 8 Rivers that has caused more CO2 to be captured at that point than any other company on the face of the planet.
Wow, fantastic.
And for you, I hope that you have written the equivalent of Dan Jurgens' books on oil and gas for how the solar and wind industry developed.
Amazing.
And the dynamics and the geopolitical dynamics that caused shifts in that industry.
Well, I can promise that if in 2050 that happened, it was because of this moment.
Excellent.
Well, today's episode was a bit shorter than most of our Thursday profiles. So hopefully you're hearing this because you actually made it all the way through to the entire end of the episode. And I want to thank you for doing so. I wonder, do you actually listen through to the end and hear these bold predictions? It's almost always the last question I ask. Do they resonate for you the way they often do for me? Would you mind sharing your thoughts on this episode with me and our friends on LinkedIn? I'm always eager to learn what resonates with you. As we head into 2024, what would you like more of? What would you like less of? What is your bold prediction for this year? And who do you think we should be featuring here on Suncast to tell the story? You can find all my contact info right in the description of whatever player you are watching or listening on. So please do reach out and be heard. Nominate a guest, recommend a new question, or just let me know where in the world we should meet up next. If you've been following me, you know that I've been harping on the fact that we just aren't telling a good enough story in the industry writ large. And I think that's paramount to our success as an industry. So in the Christmas holidays, we launched Valence, content that connects. It's a LinkedIn newsletter where now 3,000 of you are following along every week as I dig in to the details behind the stories that move our industry forward. I would encourage you, please, to subscribe to the Valence newsletter. You can find that by going to my LinkedIn account. It's easy enough to find. It's one of the featured posts. I would invite you as well to tune in next week as we're going to feature a brand new segment that is from our partnership with Solar Academy called Solar Conversations. We'll kick that off with a conversation from the folks at Chint Power, talking about their innovative new commercial and industrial technology on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, we've got insights from one of the most seasoned deal makers that I know in the industry, Mr. Rob Sternthal, as he explains what's working and what's not with the Inflation Reduction Act. If you're eager to learn more about Suncast, find past episodes, or see how you can work together with us, you'll find more about that at mysuncast.com, along with all the back episodes. And while you're there, please take 5 minutes to fill out our listener survey. It makes all the difference, and it directly impacts the future scope of the podcast. It truly does mean the world to us. As always, thanks to our sponsors for helping make sure that this content is free to you. You can learn more about them at mysuncast.com/sponsor, which is also where you can learn how to partner with us to reach thousands of solar warriors and clean tech champions twice a week, just like they do. Remember, you are what you listen to. Thanks again for showing up, Solar Warrior. It's half the battle.